Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to Vanilla Minecraft, episode number 40 in fact, which is pretty crazy to think about. Somehow we've reached 40 episodes of this gibberish and you guys are still here, which is pretty fantastic. So, we're here on our island today, obviously, for the first time in quite a while, I think. In fact, I don't even remember what we were doing last time we were here. Probably the volcano. Unless I'm forgetting something, it was probably the volcano, which was ages ago. And what we want to do today is work on our Central Valley area. Now, if you've been around for quite a while, you probably remember this place. We came down here one day and we redid all of the cliff walls to feel a little bit more like natural stone cliff faces. Because obviously the way that Minecraft naturally generates cliffs looks kind of rubbish. It's mostly covered in dirt. So we went ahead and fixed all of that up, made things feel a little bit better, and since then, this place has just been kind of sitting here, and I think it's about time we actually do something with it. Now, as I said way back when, this is actually one of the very few open places on our island where we can actually put a structure, due to the kind of hidden civilization theme we've got going on. So we want to take advantage of that, and we want to put some kind of structure down here, and that's what we want to try and get to today. But before we dive into that, I do actually want to touch up a few things about this valley itself, and just tweak a little bit of it. I'm not going to try and go overboard with it, but there's a few little things that need to be changed. So, one, I think I want to reshape this overhang a little bit. Right now, it just doesn't feel quite perfect to me. The little hangy down bits feel a little bit off, so I might want to experiment with that just a little bit. I also want to try and build a tree behind it on top of that ledge, because when you're walking down the hillside, the stone all kinds of blends in together, and you can't tell that this is a separate overhang. It just looks like it's part of the hillside behind it. So we do want to build something back there to make sure that you can tell that there's a depth in between them. And I may also want to add in another tree off of one of these ledges, just like a little bonsai-looking tree, to try and make things feel a little more interesting. So I'm going to try those things out, maybe tweak a few other little things, but I'm not going to go overboard with redoing all of the walls or anything like that today, because there's a few other things we want to do first. We'll talk about all of that later, but I'm going to go ahead and take care of those few things quick, and then we'll get to our actual main building project. I don't know how this little guy managed to get into such a precarious position, but he's in quite the pickle. It would take a Navy SEALs-esque rescue mission to get that guy out, because obviously if I go near him, he's just going to hop to his death. The only things that come to mind that I could do is flood part of my island so he could jump down, but that would wash away my grass, and I'm way too lazy to deal with that. The other option would be to throw gravel down alongside of him and block him in, and then dig an escape route that he could go out the back. But that also sounds like a lot of effort, and I'm very lazy. So we may just have a cliff rabbit from now on. So I guess that's fine. As for our cliffs themselves and everything associated with them, I did everything I said I was going to, and I don't know. I feel like every single part of it went kind of awry. So we've got the tree on the ledge behind our overhang, and it kind of helps, but it's not tall enough. I didn't really factor that in very much. I was just like, okay, we need a tree here, that'll show that there's a bunch of space behind it, and that'll be enough. But I think that if this was taller, and if the leaves were more obscured by the overhang here, that it would sell the effect a bit more. We'd be able to tell that there was more depth there. So I think I'm going to have to go back and modify that tree at some point. Maybe just replace it entirely with a different style. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I may want to try and make some more unique trees, because that is something I want to start doing across the island. Currently, we only have these modified jungle trees everywhere, and those are fine, but I should really start blending in other types to make it a little more interesting. So I might do that there. I also made this really small one, and I gotta say, it doesn't look very good. I was hoping I could make something that had a lot of shape and was just like a little something that felt like a bonsai tree. But making small trees doesn't really work very well when you want them to have a lot of shape. Like, there's just not enough blocks to convey the shape properly, and they end up looking kind of strange. So, I don't know. I may have to try and experiment with that a little bit more. We may not even need a tree here. We may be able to get away with not having extra trees on these little ledges once we start detailing the cliff faces. But, I don't know. We'll see how things go once we start adding stuff to the cliffs. Speaking of the cliffs, I did also rather spontaneously decide to add in some gray concrete powder as sediment layers. Now, we've tried this out before. I think it was over at the Mega Taiga Village I tried out this idea, and I still really like the idea, but I don't know if it looks good. I figured if I saw it on a slightly larger scale, even just if like one little chunk, I would be able to tell, but I'm still not sure, because I really like the idea, and I think it fits relatively well, but I don't know, it feels a little off to me. I think it's because there's only like one difference in color. I think if we had one or two more blocks that we could use for this, it would work really well. And after 1.13, we might, because the new dead coral blocks actually match the stone color fairly well, I think. At least based on what I've seen from them. So one of those textures might work well as like an extra sediment layer. It's hard to say for sure. But I don't know. It feels like something is missing from it. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'll get used to it when I see it. Or maybe it's just how I built it. Maybe if they were a little bit smoother or a little bigger or a little smaller or something, maybe that would help them look a little better. I'm not entirely sure. But you guys will have to let me know what I could do to potentially make that look a little better. For right now, I'm going to leave it as it is, and maybe I'll even just get used to it by the end of the episode. We'll see. Anyway, that out of the way, I think it's time we get on to our actual building project, which is going to be down here in the bottom of the valley area. Now, what's actually going to be going down here is a shrine. So, we've talked about deities quite a lot here on our islands. We've got several already. We've got Olmec, our potion brewing god. We have Janus, our portal deity over here, who handles our portal system for us. He turns it on and off. We also talked about adding in a moon goddess and an ocean god of some kind, and potentially even having those be one and the same, and also a fire god or something along those lines over at our volcano. So we've got plenty of them to work on, but I want to work on a shrine today for the moon goddess, because I want the moon goddess to be kind of the penultimate deity of the island. I want that to be like the main deity that they worship, the most important one. So I want there to be a shrine to that deity here in the center. The issue is that we can't go particularly large with this. We can't do anything really big and crazy, because while this area does feel big, we don't want to fill it all up. If we pop down a structure that's, 25 or 30 blocks across, it's going to fill up the entire valley, and it's going to feel like it was kind of thrown in and kind of crammed in there, and it's not really going to feel like it fits in place, right? It's going to feel a little bit strange, especially if we make it tall and really grand looking. It's just not going to work. Instead, I think what we should do is settle for a somewhat small, more primitive style of a shrine. Something, almost Stonehenge-y or just something basic, right? Something that isn't a huge, grand structure. And then from that, we can actually tie into something that's a little more impressive. And we'll also talk about that a little bit later on. We'll actually start the preparations for something that's going to tie into this shrine and look relatively cool. But for now, I just want to build something fairly small, fairly simplistic looking, and hopefully it'll look in place. Lost track of my words there. You get the idea, though. Hopefully it will look good in this place. Hopefully it'll look like it belongs, is like the big thing. So I'm going to go ahead and get to that, and also get to a little bit of redstone associated with it, and we'll see how it turns out. So here is our little shrine, and I hate it. I hate it so much. It is the bane of my existence. Now, it doesn't look like much, right? It looks really, really primitive, which, like I said, that's kind of what I was aiming for, though this is probably a little too simplistic. We could go a little flashier than this, and we probably still will. The thing is, everything here, including the redstone associated with this, was kind of thrown together. Not because I'm lazy or because I was trying to, shave time off and make things quickly. Quite the contrary, actually. I spent hours, and I mean hours upon hours upon hours, trying to make a design for this thing that would work. And that was just for the redstone stuff. I didn't even really get to design the aesthetic aspect of this, which is why this all got kind of thrown together at the end. I cannot put this off any longer. And all of that didn't really lead anywhere. I spent a ton of time trying to figure out a really cool way to do the redstone, which we're going to see in action in a moment, I think. But the original intention was to have something big, not necessarily big, but have some physical thing here in the middle of the shrine, even if it just felt like a big stone or anything like that. And then at a certain time, which is coming up shortly, it would open up. It would kind of split open and kind of lead to a hole in the middle of the shrine. Now, as you can see there, I did get that part implemented in a really, really lazy way. All I did was kind of have this little cross-section of the floor that opens up, and even that is done really messily. There's, like, furnaces and stuff, which isn't the end of the world, but yeah, that is nowhere near as impressive looking as I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be this huge spectacle. The issue is, we can't really have redstone that's visible here on the island. Like, that's a big goal that I have. Whenever I do something technical, I don't want the slime box to show. I don't want the pistons to show. I want everything to be hidden. And when you're trying to make big moving things, that's really, really tricky. So I'm going to continue experimenting with that, I think, and hopefully come up with a design for this shrine that I really like. But for the moment, this is kind of the general idea. This will at least show you guys what I'm aiming to do, because I can't really put it off any longer. I'm already a day late on the video, and yeah, it's not going well. So the general idea here is that we have our shrine to the moon goddess, and then once every 8 nights, which is the kind of time that Minecraft goes through its lunar cycle, because the moon, wherever it is, which is conveniently a full moon tonight, the moon goes through 8 different phases in Minecraft, just like it does in real life. I mean, it doesn't just go through 8 in real life, but the moon goes through phases of the game based on which night you're in. And basically the idea is that every 8th night, we'll say we're on a full moon. Obviously, we can't sync it up to that perfectly because it's not going to keep going when the world isn't loaded or when just this area isn't loaded. But we'll say that it only happens on full moons, right? Every full moon, the shrine itself will open up, and the center will reveal a hole going down to something else. And we'll talk about what that something else is momentarily. But that's the general idea I had for this little shrine. I wanted it to just be this simple little thing, but if you happen to be out here at the right time, it does something really cool. And I love that idea, but like I said, it didn't go so well. The redstone didn't really go particularly well either. If you are familiar with programming at all, you probably know the term spaghetti code. It basically means that your code goes in all directions and it's just this unintelligible mess and you can't really tell what's going on. Yeah, that's kind of the case with this redstone. I just kind of crammed everything wherever it would go. But it does work. So essentially we have our little circuit here, which basically every night it gets a signal that comes in. And there's 8 items in total. So each time that the kind of nighttime comes, it sends a signal in here. That sends an item into this hopper. And then once this dropper gets emptied out, which means all of the items are over here, it triggers the system to open everything up. And then when daytime comes, it sends all the items back and closes stuff up and waits for the next 8th day. So that's how all of that works. And that's the general idea behind our shrine. Like I said, we're going to try and do something a little bit more impressive with it, but I just cannot focus on it anymore now, both because I'm completely out of time and because I'm going completely insane from dealing with it. So for now, that's going to be our shrine. Now, what about that stuff below it? Well, before we talk about that, we first need to make a way to get down there. And that's actually what this little cutout here is for. So this is going to lead to a hallway that's going to lead to a way to get down to the area beneath our shrine. The area that that little hole is actually going to allow you to see down into. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this little thing together. It's just going to be a simple hallway. I'll probably decorate it up a little bit more later on. But for the time being, because I don't have all of the details worked out on quite a lot of things, really, I'm just going to try and do something fairly simple, and later on we'll try and make it a little bit better. For now, though, I'm just going to set up our hallway, and then we'll talk about what's going on beneath this shrine, and I'll give you guys at least the general overview of what we're doing. So I've put in a temporary tunnel. Do keep in mind that this tunnel is going to lead to something that I consider one of the most important builds on the island. It's going to be something that feels very grand and feels like, you know, a place of great importance. So eventually, once we figure out the build style of that place and we really get to work on it, we're actually going to come back through and completely redo this tunnel. For the time being, though, I didn't want to leave it just as like dirt and stone, so I threw together a really basic design. Doesn't look particularly good, but it's at least something. It feels a little better than just having a bland style. And I think it does actually look okay, now that I see it with the moody lighting it's got going on. I kind of like that. But for the time being, it'll do as a temporary tunnel. So what does this lead to? Well, currently it leads to a bit of a drop. Now, this is actually going to have to be here. Not necessarily a drop just like this, but we want our tunnel here to come up to some way for us to get down to the bottom. Because the structure we want to build underneath our shrine is going to be relatively tall, and it needs to go all the way down to at least Y level 25. Now, I'm not going to try and build this today. I do have a pretty good idea of a transportation method to get down here, and I think it should fit relatively well. But we'll worry about that later on. For right now, what we need to do is actually prepare this area for the build we're going to be doing. You see, it's going to take quite a bit of space to do what I want to. And there's a few different ways we could go about this. Obviously, TNT would be the fun one. And I could definitely use blowing some stuff up after dealing with that shrine nonsense for so long. But unfortunately, well, we're a little too close to other projects. Our enchanting cave is going to be within a couple blocks of the dimensions that I need for this, as is our nether portal. We're really crammed in this particular part of the island. So, unfortunately, we can't TNT things up, so I've put a beacon down here. I'm just going to have to dig through all of this manually using the good old speed mining. So, that shouldn't take too long, hopefully. And once that's all taken care of, and I'm, good to go with a hollowed out space, I'll talk to you guys about what we're actually going to be doing down here. Now, unfortunately, I don't think we're really going to be able to work on it today, because it is going to be a pretty big project, and it's going to be one that I really want to take my time designing. But at the very least, we can get some stuff prepared, and we can talk about the ideas of it, and all that good stuff. So, I'm going to go get some mining, and I'll be back with you guys once we have a properly hollowed out space. Oof. Okay, so here is the space we've hollowed out so far, and honestly, that feels a bit bigger than I thought it actually was going to. So, I think this should be good. We can technically expand it out a little bit yet. Obviously, we can still go down a few more blocks. Quite a few, actually. I think we're like 20 blocks up. So, we've got plenty of space to go down if we need more height for some reason. We can go over this way a little bit and that way a little bit. Unfortunately, the other two directions, we are very, very close to bumping into our enchanting room, which is basically 2 blocks in that way, as well as our lower nether portal room, which is right across that wall, maybe a few blocks in. So, we couldn't make it much bigger symmetrically, but if we want little offshoots and stuff, we can do that. Anyway, what is this room for? Why did I make this ginormous space? Well, this is actually going to be the proper temple for the moon goddess. So up above, we built that little shrine, which we're going to have to redo. But the general idea behind the shrine is still there, right? Where you have kind of a basic thing representing the moon goddess, and it opens up every 8th night and allows moonlight through. It's right here on top of the beacon, in fact. Though, obviously, right now it's letting in daylight, so it's quite bright. So that's going to be a really neat effect that we can do something cool with and give this place kind of a unique vibe. I also want to do a lot of stuff with water, stuff to reflect like how the moon would pull on tides. So maybe when this opens up, we could have certain fountains activate and things like that. That sounds really, really cool. Just in general, I want to make a really impressive structure, something that feels really grand and feels like this was something super important to the people on the island. That is the goal with this place, and that is why I felt we needed a huge space. Now, we may not utilize this entire thing. We may not go and make like a 30-block tall, pillars and all that crazy stuff. We may make this a bit smaller or segment it off in a few different ways. We'll have to see how things go. But I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty cool, and I'm quite excited for the project. Now, I'm not sure that we're going to be continuing on this right away, because I do want to make sure that it's going to look cool, and I want to make sure that I design things ahead of time so that everything works out really well, unlike with the shrine. So it may be a little bit before we actually get to this project, which I know is a little bit of a tease, but it should be good, and I want to make sure that it's a genuinely impressive project. That being said, I think we're going to have to call it here for today, and we'll see what we do next time. Maybe we'll start work on this. Maybe we'll move on to a completely different project for the time being. We'll see how things go. I'll do my best to make sure that it's something actually productive and cool looking to make up for the whole, lack of productivity today, other than digging a giant hole and making a pile of stone. So I'll try and do that. I'll try and do something a little better. Though next week, time might be a little bit iffy. So we'll see how things go. But that being said, I'm going to have to call it here. So, let's take a little fly around our cave here. Just for funsies. Whew, that makes it feel a lot smaller, doesn't it? Okay, so I'm going to call it here. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. And if you have any ideas for what we could include in our kind of moon goddess temple area, keep in mind it's going to be big and grand. Be sure to tell me. Because, as always, I love hearing your input. So, that out of the way, I'm going to go. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you next time.